to, figuring out the responses to COVID. Um, in a lot of ways, we've been in sort of a reactive state with news being different every single day. And so I started to think about how to best be a value add in a situation like this. So I started to envision some potential ideas moving forward. And so these ideas I wanted to share with you. Once again, they are ideas, and I'm hoping if they have legs and if people are interested in moving forward with them, that we will. So one of them is just getting a survey of African-American families across the district and trying to figure out, what are some of the best next steps. I think being able to connect directly with your primary stakeholders, that includes families, educators, and students, to try.
Mr. Wandera, I cannot hear you. I don't know if other folks can hear you.
Yeah, we lost you.
Yeah, oh, now we can hear you again.
You can hear me? Or you cannot
Yes,
hear?
yes,
Sure.
thank you.
Do you know where I cut off at?
I think you had just transitioned and started to talk about the new adjustments that you're doing to start talking with people about things that they want to pursue.
So in terms of this survey, yeah.
I cannot hear Mr. Wandera. I don't know if other people can hear him.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm getting the voice of.
We lost you again.
Next slide. Oh, this is the next slide. Yeah, so then I think once the survey was completed, it's a possibility for ASAT to be able to look at it and maybe be able to host some town meetings for community members to really try to dwindle down, like, what are some best next steps.
I don't know if I'm the only one, but I cannot hear. Or I can hear Mr. Wandera again.
I know that people are interested in hearing about engagement numbers as it relates to African-American students in the district. And currently, there's a 62% engagement level for African-American students across the district. The one encouraging.
You cut out again.
Sorry, Mr. Wandera, to interrupt again. I can't hear you again. It seems like you're cutting in and out again. I don't know if we can try to have you rejoin.
Excuse me?
I don't know if other people are also hearing your audio be cut and we cannot hear everything.
I've heard very little in the last 2 minutes.
Okay. If you want to try reconnecting, we can do that. Or we can see if we can hear you from now on as we finish the slide.
Okay. So maybe just wave or something if you can't hear me. That way I know.
Okay. Will do.
I think you're getting pretty close to the finish, so we can get there, get questions.
Connect and reconnect. I'll try to reconnect again.
Thank you. And board, while we're waiting for Mr. Wandera to reconnect, can we please have a motion to extend the meeting because it's about to be 11?
President Hernandez Jarvis, how much time do you think we need?
We have two more discussion items. We have the COVID update and then facility use fees and monitoring for fiscal year 2020-2021, and then we have our continuation of closed session after that. So I'm guessing we're gonna need at least an hour, at least.
Okay, I move till to midnight.
Second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Phillips. Motion to extend our meeting till midnight, seconded by Trustee Panas. Can we please have a vote?
Dawit, yes.
Panis, yes.
Madam Chair, I'll be voting yes, but I just need you to know I've been at this same seat since 9 a.m. doing virtual work most of the day, so I'm gonna last as long as I can for
Okay.
that hour.
Thank you, Trustee Cuevas.
Laura, no.
Okay, Hernandez Jarvis, yes.
Phillips, yes.
So motion to extend the meeting until midnight passes with Trustee Cuevas, Trustee Panas, Trustee Phillips, and Hernandez Jarvis voting yes. Soon Trustee DeWitt voting yes, and Trustee Lara voting no. So board, let's get to work. Is Mr. Wandera back with us?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Great, yes.
Okay, so I'll
Thank you.
try to be brief as to not keep people up. The last thing I shared was the engagement level. I don't know if you guys caught any of that. The district numbers for engagement for African American students being at 62%. And that I shared that there's an area of encouragement in regards to the 21% that have been unreported. And that's really a matter of attendance taking or what have you. So hopefully those numbers will change and go up over time. But then still thinking about, like, of those students who are engaged or those students who are absent or unreported, what may be some opportunities for the summer. And so I started to think about building a summer resource guide of online resources that families could use to continue their education throughout the summer. And then again, if the opportunity is there for the community college to be able to take advantage of that book voucher system that's already been set up for them. And if there's some way to build out some various different summer learning opportunities and just partner with people to try to figure out the best ways to be able to do that. If you go to the next slide. And so I wanted to share with you some long-term goals. Number one is really to complete an action plan to build out a fully staffed Office of African American Achievement to coordinate services that are aligned to best practices and are included in the recently adopted resolution. I really hope to leverage high school Black student unions to be change makers within their school communities because I think that's super important. And I think that's the way to success. To try to turn some of the pilot programs that I've shared earlier into sustainable structural programs that are across all schools. And then one of the big things for me is to ensure that site plans for student achievement always have African American students, especially stated as a focused subgroup, so that all leaders have to think about African American students when they fill those things out. And then lastly, to continue to grow partnerships, belief systems, and support for African American students within the district to help close the achievement gap. So I'll wrap up there and give folks an opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation, Mr. Wandera. And I want to know, before we go to comments and questions from the board, if there's any public comment.
Yes, President Hernandez Jarvis, there are two pieces of, there have been two comments submitted.
Can we please hear those? Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Walton.
The first is from Scotty Smith. After reviewing the report in board agenda item F3, I found it lacking in many ways. It does not evaluate current programs and data on the effectiveness of such for African American students. Furthermore, the report does not address or provide any data on the current and maybe future practices for distance learning. I thought at the least there would be information such as a breakdown on the number of students by school participating and how many are not, parent support provided or needed, internet access or lack thereof, and instructional materials and instructional tutorial hours or minutes per day or week. I find the report lacking details in every way. Therefore, I have attached questions that I would like answered at the May 6th board meeting, and I'm requesting that Board President Hernandez Jarvis include the questions in the board record with the stipulation that all questions, answered or not, at this board meeting be sent to me in writing within a week. If time permits, I would like a board member to read the questions into the record. The second public comment is from Brian Ames. Has anyone spoken with the coordinators of the Mafanikio program for their feedback on what can be helpful toward African American achievement? This program has gained traction for 3 years since its inception and built valuable relationships with our African American families. Is it true that a survey is being sent to African American families to be used as a catalyst for the next step on the topic of African American achievement? The district is spinning their wheels again and going in circles. It's time for action. The survey is a waste of resources. Current programs like the Mafanikio program is a lifeline to our African American families. It should be considered a valuable platform to build on the trust and positive relationships it has created with African American families for the past 3 years. That concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Walton. And I'm not sure, I started looking at the clock later, that Mr. Berger, thank you for putting it on the camera, but I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we acknowledge that we did receive, I believe it's 18 questions that you know, request information in depth, and I know that we have the time limits for the public comment, and I just want to, you know, honor that. Maybe we can have 1 minute just to read through the first, you know, 3 questions, the first page. I think that's the only part that we can get through. I can read them, or Mr. Watson, if you have them there with you, we can read those. And I'll just like to, you know, let Ms. Smith know that we received them, and you know, staff can further get more information so that we can have some responses. So if we have like 1 minute, because I know that the comments that, you know, she submitted, you know, she was requesting if we can do this. Mr. Duffy, do you want to read them? Do you want me to read like 3 of the questions? Because I know that we want to hear from board members too on this issue.
I would maybe read the first 3.
Yeah, that's what I was saying right now.
Get a sense of it, and then we'll make sure it's circulated. I think many of us have it.
Yeah. So do you want to go ahead and read it, or do you want me to read them?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Mr. Walton
For
had-
Mr. Walton?
need to open.
I do not have them. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Let me get back to that attachment.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Berger, thank you for having the timer ready as well.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Considering that there are very few Black teachers across the country, what or how do you propose to recruit and retain highly qualified Black teachers? And in what grade would you think having a Black teacher would be most effective? Have you done an analysis of how many Black teachers are in the WCCUSD and which schools and grades they're teaching? Furthermore, do you know how many Black teachers, administrators have left the WCCUSD within the last 2 years, and how many have received pink slips this year? What plans do you have to address the lack of African American teachers in the school classes to ensure that African American students receive equity in their education from teachers who are not African Americans? In other words, are you planning on engaging only African American teachers? If so, why? There's no mention of the Mafanikio and Young Scholars program. Have you done an evaluation of these programs by site? What progress have they made? Data. Why have you excluded them from your report? Do you have any plans to replace them or any other program? If so, what programs do you have in mind to replace them? It's my
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Thank you, Mr. Duffy. And thank you to Ms. Smith for submitting these questions too. I think that there's a lot that we can continue to have to talk about and to have you know, future responses as well. Thank you again for sending these in, and thank you, Mr. Duffy, for reading them. So can we please begin with our student trustee and then go in the same order we had before with comments? Student trustee Dawit, I think you were connected, but I don't see you as.
That, hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
Okay. I think we can all agree that our African American community in the district is not doing very well. Well, yeah, it's not doing very well. Needs as much help as possible, and I hope you will be that person that will really help us out. We really do need a leader, someone that can take control of this and make sure and then guide us through all of this. It's so heartbreaking to see, to see the statistics and all these facts in our district with African Americans. Like, it's crazy. It just hurts to see how low it is. And so I really hope that you can really help us with that. And I think you can. So thank you for taking this position. Some things I wanted to address right now was, I think it's really the facts about having African American teachers. I thought that was really interesting. So I was wondering if you had anything in mind to make sure that that actually did happen, where African American students did have at least 2 teachers by the 3rd grade. I'm a junior now, and I've been in this district since 7th grade. I moved from Iowa. Before 7th grade, I had no black teacher because I was in Iowa in a small white town. And since 7th grade in this district, I've had 4 black teachers. That's in 5 years, 4 black teachers. It's numerous amount of teachers overall. And so I kind of want to know, yeah. And so what you show is that it's important to have black teachers if we want our black kids to succeed. I want to know, what do you have in mind to make sure that does happen? The person had already said that, that Mr. Duffy read. That was also one of the questions. They took it right out of my mouth. I want to know, but Mr. Duffy also, do we have statistics on the origin, ethnicities, and race of our teachers?
Yes, we do.
I think could I have a look at that sometime? I think that'd be a really interesting to look at. And I want to know, and obviously we can't just go and just completely change who our teachers are so they match precisely like the race of each school or like the students. But is that something that could be worked on, where we could have more African American teachers in the district where we need them? 32%? That's a high percentage. So if we could somehow get a few more black teachers down levels below 3rd grade, this shows that that could be a big change. So I hope that is something that we.
Thank you, student trustee Dawit. And I think that we lost your last remarks. The audio cut off. I couldn't hear the last part.
I think I got the gist of it. But yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I think the most important thing is retention, right? And part of retention means paying attention to, right? And really trying to bring folks together. So in the time that I've been here, I've tried to connect with as many black teachers as I can, and sending out emails to them. I sent a whole series out during Black History Month. I sent that across the entire district. But I got a lot of feedback from a lot of African American teachers throughout the district, and just connecting with them. And so I think part of the retention plan is just really starting to pour into African American teachers, and maybe in ways that they haven't previously experienced. And so some of the numbers that I remember off the top of my head, I don't have it in front of me. But again, I think there was like 13 schools that had maybe only 1 or none in regards to African American teachers, right? And so I started to think about what it must be like to be one teacher in an entire school, to be the one black teacher in an entire school, and then having the feeling of, all black issues being, launched on you, right? And you have to have the answer for all the black answers, right? And I don't want anybody to have that feeling, right? And I don't want anybody to feel alienated, which is the primary reason why I started to think about this Black Teacher Fellowship, and starting to think about that and work on that, and why I'm super excited about the Black Teacher Project opportunity that's there. And I think the folks that are going to take advantage of that opportunity coming up this summer is really just the first step towards towards supporting African American teachers. And my thought is, if those teachers start to feel taken care of and cared about, all right, that spills over, that becomes infectious, right? And so if there's some of those teachers, if they know teachers in other districts, or they know folks who may just be getting ready to graduate from college or what have you, the thought about like, hey, come over here, can certainly start to help and start to create like a revolution. But I really think the first step is in the retention of the teachers that we have and pouring into the teachers that we have currently.
All right, yeah, I agree. That's a good idea. I had one more thing I wanted to say, if that was okay with you guys.
Yeah.
I think one of the hardest things for me as an African American in this district, would be going into a classroom and being one of the only African Americans. Now, because we used to have the advanced classes and like the regular classes. Now I know that's not a thing anymore. But when those used to be a thing, in like middle school for me, I was one of the only Black kids in the class. Now I have mostly AP classes and honor classes. I have 3 classes right now, and I think there's about 4 or 5 other African Americans in my classes in total. I think that's like over 60 kids in all, right? And so, but I think sometimes I feel that teachers don't always know how to react to that. If you have like an AP class, I sometimes walk into a classroom and I have the class and I feel as if the teacher has a lower expectation for me because I'm the only African American in the classroom, or because they've had African Americans in the past who have not done as well in the class. So I think that is something, I'm wondering is it possible to like implement a way to make sure that teachers understand that you will have African American in your classes and to treat them the same or fairly? Because I feel like it's not always just like racism, but like they expect you, because of statistics and stuff, they expect you not to do as well as the other kids, so they treat you a little bit differently. And I know I'm not the only one that's struggling with that, and I'm wondering if there's anything, if you've thought about that before, and if there's something that could be done about that.
Yeah, that's a lived experience. I mean, I think one of the things, when you're part of a subgroup that can be overlooked by some, and some folks can have low expectations, and obviously not all, but some folks can have low expectations. It hardens you in a way, right? And it can put you in a situation where you're trying to figure out how to deal with things that you shouldn't have to try to figure out at 15, 16, 17 years old. But it is like training for you.
I'm really sorry. Could you go back a little bit? I completely missed that. My thing just froze. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying it's if I were to summarize, I'd say that burden, and I think you may have froze again, so you might not hear what I'm saying right now. I think you froze.
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
Hello?
Hello? I was saying that that burden is never going to go away, right? That's one of those burdens that African American males and females hold for a long time. So part of it is to try to figure out how do we get more African American students in AP classes, right? So that they're fully recognized, and it's not you're not just one of 35 people in the classroom or what have you. And so what I'd say to you in short is send me an email and share some of your ideas, right? I'd love to be able to hear your thoughts on what you think can change in that regard. Like what do you think about getting more African American students into AP classes? Because it certainly doesn't mean they don't have the ability and talent. Sometimes it's just the opportunity may not be presented, or they may not know about it. And so I'd like to try to figure out how to leverage students to be able to share that word. And so one of the things that I was sharing earlier is like, how do you use Black student unions at schools to be able to leverage those kind of things, to be able to advertise those kind of things, to really kind of push the importance of taking AP classes and push the importance of doing concurrent enrollment so that you're more competitive when it's time to go to college. So shoot me an email and we could talk about it offline. But I'll tell you directly that's a burden you're gonna have on your shoulders for the rest of your life. But to hold it, right? Hold it with pride, and each one teach one. So, every single classmate that you talk to, encourage them to come into class with you. Encourage them to go to, community college with you and take courses with you. Encourage them to do some of those extracurricular activities. Encourage them to study, right? All those things are going to be small change makers in making sure that that you're seen and heard.
Thank you, Mr. Wandera, and thank you, student trustee Delia Vasquez Amado, for having this, this question and this great conversation. Thank you so much. Trustee Panas?
Thank you, President Hernandez-Jarvis. Mr. Wandera, thank you so much for your presentation. And Trustee Vasquez-Sumila, I would really like to thank you for your sharing those comments you make. And in my mind, walking into a classroom and finding a teacher who doesn't think you can do as well as anybody else, that's like racism. And that's why all the Black kids are sitting together in the cafeteria so they can talk about those things and all the things that have happened to them today. So I think we need to be willing to name that. And I really appreciate you saying that because it reminds us of some of the challenges that we have. Everybody's trying to make it better, but we just have a lot of challenges, and hopefully Mr. Wandera can help us address some of those things.
Thank you very much.
The questions come up several times here, and Mr. Wandera, do you actually know how many Black teachers we have in WCC USD?
Yeah, I can look it up real quick.
Okay. Ms. Williams, do you have a comment there? You're muted.
Just now, it looks like a little bit over 200.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mr. Wandera, you said you had reached out to I think you said you'd reached out to every one of the students who qualified for the African American Honor Roll. Was that correct?
Yeah.
That's great.
Except for the elementary school kids. I sent it to middle and high school kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious how much outreach you've done to parents in the district, and what percentage of parents do you think you've been able to at least be in the same room as, maybe not met? Are you making much progress in getting to the parents in our district? Because obviously they have major concerns here. Mr. Wandera, are you there?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah. I didn't hear the answer to that question, Mr. Wandera.
Yeah, that's okay. So yeah, like I said, I've attended as many APAC meetings as I can at various different schools. I've been to all the ASAP meetings. ASAP also, I meet with ASAP probably about 3 times a month at minimum. So we have the ASAP meeting. We have a debrief of the ASAP meeting. And then we have the meeting that's prepares for the ASAP meeting. So we meet at least a minimum of 3 times a month. I don't have an exact number in terms of how many people I've met. There's still a lot more to meet. There's still a lot more to connect with. And so I certainly hope to meet many, many more and get more folks' voices, which is part of the reason why I thought of this survey idea, to be able to extend out. So one of the things that I did last, I think it was a week and a half ago, is I asked all the principals in the district if they could send me their APAC representative. And that's quite honestly one of the areas that needs some growth and some work. There aren't APACs at every school, and there needs to be, right? And so to date, I have about 14 principals who have shared with me their APAC leader. And I was hoping to be able to engage them to be able to kind of branch out to more parents, to hear more voices for more folks across the district. But yeah, we're certainly in the process of trying to, I'm all about relationships and all about meeting people. I love meeting people and talking to people if I can. So I certainly want to extend out to as many folks as possible.
Okay, thank you. When I saw the title of the presentation, it says African American Student Achievement Update. And I have to confess, I didn't see much data in this report. Are you planning to come back to us with data on African American students, on African American student achievement?
Sure. Yeah, I'm certainly happy to do that.
Okay. Just offhand, do you know what % of our African American students qualify for free and reduced lunch?
I don't know offhand.
Don't know. Okay. Okay. You know, during your observation period here, how many schools have you been able to get to, and are you finding places that have particularly effective strategies?
It's hard to answer that question without throwing some school under the bus that I've been to and I don't mention. But I think there are some places that have been very encouraging, and I think are heading in the right direction. I think one of the things that I looked at when I started to look at some of the SBAC data from the previous year, I was really impressed with some of the scores that Hannah Ranch had for African American students. And I went to go and visit with the principal there to just kind of get some insights onto like some of the work that he's done. I think that the Mafanikio program at Mira Vista is really amazing, and that the coordinators over there have been doing a fantastic job. I've been really impressed with them. I think I should probably stop there, so like I said, so I don't throw anybody under the bus. But I think that there are some bright spots for sure.
Okay, thank you. Have you been able to meet much with RISE? Because that's an organization that obviously deals with a ton of kids of color. And I'm just wondering if you've had many conversations with them or if you're working on building on any plans with them.
Yeah, I just actually learned about them right, probably like about February or so. So I haven't yet, but I definitely want to, for sure.
Okay. I'm just wondering, you mentioned about Cherokee Holly and Stige kind of in the same sentence. Do you have specific, another question about Black teachers is how many Black teachers are there at Stige right now? And can you tell us more about what you're thinking about doing there?
Well, I'll say I'm not thinking about doing something. I'm thinking about collaborating with people to see what they're interested in, right? I mean, I don't think there's this isn't a situation where I do like I present opportunities and try to create opportunity and try to collaborate with people to try to figure out what their interests are, right? I'm not going to go into Steve and say, this is what I'm doing here, right? So talking with Nicole and having a conversation with her to try to figure out how to help. And actually, it was just a matter of just gauging their interest and seeing if this be something that'd be interested in. And we were still in the process of having those conversations. But I'm not going to do anything to anyone. It's really like a collaborative effort.
Okay. Is there anything right now that you can share with us about how you're planning to build out the Office of African American Achievement?
Yeah, so I shared earlier that I got a fellow from the Goldman School of Public Policy, and he just presented to me a strategic plan based upon the research that he did in the over the last few months. So we're actually meeting about that soon to talk about it. So it's still in process. It's still something that we're working on. But again, that's going to be something that is a collaborative effort to be able to have my thoughts and have thoughts of district leadership and have thoughts of ASAT and thoughts that came from his research to try to figure out the best approach.
Okay, one last question here.
Sorry to interrupt, and I just want to take note that it's 11:25 and we still have 2 more agenda items after this and then continuation of closed session. So if we can continue to, finish up our comments, but in a way that helps us to continue to move the meeting along. And I'll be happy to make sure that we bring this item back for further earlier discussion in the day.
Okay, I will stop right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Banas. Thank you, Mr. Wandera, and Trustee Lara.
No comments.
Thank you, Trustee Phillips.
Mr. Wandera, how are
It's hard to hear
Trustee
you.
Phillips. Trustee Phillips, I can't hear you. I don't know if other people can hear Trustee Phillips, but I cannot hear Trustee Phillips.
Can't hear me?
Now we can.
Oh, sorry. So, Mr. Wandera, in the beginning of your presentation, you talked about building relationships. Have you met with the Mafanikio coordinators yet?
All of them, no, but I have met with some.
Which ones have you met with?
Off the top of my head, like I said, I've been to the Mira Vista, Stewart, I can send you a list of schools I've been to, but I can't think of off the top of my head. But I know for sure I've talked to those folks.
Okay. And then you mentioned Dr. Sharaki Holly. Are you aware that we've had Dr. Sharaki Holly in the district in the past?
Yep, I am. And I think one of the things that he's done is and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because, like I said, I'm just getting here. But I think the opportunity that's come through him has been an opportunity for anybody to engage in and for anybody to be a part of. It's been kind of a wide net that's been kind of thrown or cast, if you will. And so the thought was, I believe in having proof of concept, right? And so the thought was that if the work that he's done, could it be applicable or could it be useful within the district if it was more concentrated versus having this huge wide net that was cast, right? And so that's kind of where the thought process came to try to do a concentrated effort, starting one place and seeing if they were interested in doing some work with him. And again, this is part of a conversation. This isn't me coming in saying that we're going to do this and this is how it's going to be done. This is just really part of a conversation that we've been having to try to figure out if it will be beneficial. But yeah, I've known that he's been in the district at a much larger scale and I know that folks have participated in some of his trainings. I don't know if those were in the summertime or what have you, but I don't think he's done anything as focused as just like one school to try to establish a proof of concept.
So I know that he was at Birdie for quite some time as well, but I will tell you, and I'm not going to prolong the hour, but I'm not really hearing anything new. And what I mean by new is not shiny bells and whistles or anything like that, but I'm not really hearing anything new. I'm hearing a regurgitation of what has already been going on. And the presentation that I'm hearing, just to be frank, it's very heavy on what other people are doing, but it is very light on what you are doing. I am going to leave it at that because we've had conversation in this meeting about personnel. I'll bring my comments, I'll flesh that out offline, I guess with the superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Phillips. We have Trustee Cuevas now.
Just very quickly, I'm gonna use my time and make two comments. One, this conversation needs to not end with this. I'm not satisfied with having this conversation this late in the evening, and there's so much more to talk about. Two, I don't think it's just Mr. Wandera's job to make sure all our students, like our student trustee and every other.
We lost you there, Ms. Cuevas.
Trustee Cuevas, we can't hear you.
We lost you, Ms. Cuevas.
And I would hope that we would come back and spend more time discussing some real issues. And the reason why I think it's important is because we've sat here, even the people in the audience that might be out there, even as we move to Zoom, you've seen firsthand racist implications of people targeting the African-American board member on this board and the other folks of color on this board. So if you need proof that that kind of attitude exists, you got it. And my question is, how are we making sure that our school system has no tolerance and is in fact flipping that script to say that if you aren't figuring out how to support and center African American students and Latino students and other students of color English learners, then you're not really serving the students of this district. And that is something beyond just talking about programs. But at some point, Superintendent, you're going to have to put a stake in the ground and show progress with something. I beg you, something. Because to me, that's the answer to those people who think that it's cute to go ahead and use public forums to express their racism. Is that our answer, our deepest answer to that is to show the success that doesn't stop us from investing in our students. So I hope that we can pick up this conversation, because I feel like we're doing it injustice right now. And I don't mean this to attack anybody. I don't mean this to say somebody's not doing it well or doing good. I just think that this is going to be even harder to achieve with layering on the challenges that COVID-19 is presenting budget-wise with our, so I want to figure out how you start again bringing the services that Mr. Wandera is talking about, that our community is talking about, more core and front and center in how we do bargaining in this district, how we do PD for everybody, how we do, because you're going to have to merge those two things. You have to do PD anyways. How are we centering these things? How are you looking at curriculum? How are you looking at trainings, Dr. Guerrero, on instruction? How are you, in fact, figuring out, I want to see how that gets injected into how we do school in West County, because I almost feel like if I was a parent, I'm very frustrated right now, because I'll feel like some of what I'm hearing right now is like, let's just reach out to parents as if they're the deficit. Let's make them feel what they need to feel to help their student. Yes, that's part of it. But we're talking about systemic things that we need to do. So I would hope that we would have more conversation about this, that we would bring it back. And we would get serious about what does it mean to be successful in spite of all the challenges that we have. The more time that again goes by and goes by and goes by, to me is evidence that there is no coherence. I don't care what the strategy is at this point. You know, they are not a public institution, but there are some charter schools that are managing to get 98% of their African-American students college ready. If they can do it, I know we can do it. So figure out what it is that you're going to show success and start reporting on that and figuring out how you are orchestrating that. Mr. Wandera, just some feedback. I cannot see your lighting is really bad. I cannot see you presenting. I feel like it's doing injustice to how important this issue is for us. So in the future, can you make sure you look at fix your lighting, because I can't even see any expression as you're presenting this work, and it's distracting right now at 12 o'clock at night. So Madam President, can we please re-agendize this for a more discussion?
Thank you, Trustee Cuevas. Yeah, I think that makes sense, because we have a lot of people who have waited and are still in our participants list, who have been waiting for hours to hear us discuss this and to be able to have part, in this conversation from a distance. And I want to just share my comments that I had the opportunity to be in a meeting earlier this week with Mr. Duffy and a few other staff members, and with members of the executive committee from ASSAT. And I just really, I want to just share. I know that we have to move on to other issues, but I don't want to minimize this. And I'm going to take just 1 or 2 minutes to share my comments, and then make sure that we agendize this for another discussion with the board earlier in the day. And I just want to say, I'm going to read it off on my other computer. I think that, some of the comments that I shared at the other meeting earlier this week is that I do believe in shared community, like leader decision-making processes. And I think that when I'm looking at the presentation and I see that there's one slide that contains data that is from, I think it's the 4th slide, and it has information from Johns Hopkins University. It's not from our own district. And it's been 5 months. I understand that, almost 2 months ago, we had an unexpected closure of our schools temporarily due to COVID-19. But before that, we had at least, 3 months where again, I think a plan could have started to become crafted in partnership with ASAD, community leaders, parents, and students, in all honesty. And I think, like, I go back to this again, like, what, we have a vision now, we have a resolution. So now what's going to be the plan? Like, what are going to be the check marks along the way that tell us, okay, we're checking this off the list because we have had a data session on African American students and their literacy development, K through third, something, that is not what I'm saying that we need to do that, but that the priorities and values that are set by the ASAT leaders and Mr. Wandera and our students, our African American students, and listening to what they say, what they need. Because I think that when we passed the resolution unanimously, it was to really say, like, it's time to really take this issue collaboratively, because I know it's taken seriously, but it hasn't been taken to the seriousness of a point of having like a plan, right? And I think that we're at a point where we can have a long-term plan of what is it going to look like to implement this resolution? What is it going to look like to have solid steps and deadlines and monitoring? And I think that those are to be determined by the ASAD and the working group that should have a say in this. And I do, I remember a few months back, I don't know if it was this year or the past year in 2019, but I was bringing up the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know that we have to do massive cuts, and I don't see that happening this year or in the near future, but I do want to continue to have that message of, like, we need to have a focus on this, because I think, like student trustee Dawit was sharing, that he has experienced some things that I'm sure are not, just anecdotal to him. I think a lot of us and a lot of our kids have experienced these things early on, because it's true, like, racism doesn't wait until you grow up to get to you and to hit you. And I think that I mentioned the fact that there are anti-racist frameworks of education that school districts have adopted, and those are actual things. And when I said that at a meeting earlier, I read some comments online about how what am I talking about? What is she talking about? Like, and it's like, it's just that, those comments, when we get threats of violence in our emails because we decided to vote to name a school Michelle Obama Elementary School, like, those are very real things. And I know that our students also go through things like that. So I think that when we talk about this work and doing work of anti-racism in our schools, it's serious talk. And I think it's serious talk that really begs for us to have long-term plans for how this resolution is going to begin to fix those things, and how we're going to begin to have educators and staff that completely believe that all of our Black students can achieve, and that they all have the same potential as any other child. And I think that that's where we need to have a focus on, and having, a conversation, and letting the people who have been guiding this work in an informal way have a more formalized partnership like the ASAT committee has, and really help to drive this work in partnership with the district, because at the end of the day, it's those families, it's those kids that are being affected the most, and we need to honor that. They need to have a voice, in all of this. So I would gladly work with Clerk Lada and Superintendent Duffy and the ASAT committee and Mr. Wandera to bring this back to the board for further discussion. Thank you so much, board. I appreciate your comments. Our student trustee, Dawit especially, thank you for all of your insight and for everything that you shared. Thank you, Mr. Wandera, as well, and Mr. Duffy. So thank you, everybody, and thank you to the community members who have been with us for hours. And I look forward to having a discussion with the board earlier on at another meeting coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that leads us to our next agenda item, which is F1, updates on school operations during the COVID-19 closure. And I would like to just remind board members that we will have another update later on. So, if you have any questions or comments that you think can wait for the next one, that would be great, so that we can make sure that we move on to item F4 after that, and then to our continuation of closed session. Thank you.
I mean, for the purposes of time, and I can defer to my team, but it's 11:40. I know that, so it might just be easiest if I share what's on the slides. We've been sort of going back and forth with different folks, but let's just go and see how we do, because there's a lot going on and a lot that people are trying to take care of. So just quick overview. We're still in phase 2 of distance learning. We made that shift. Governors made commentary about opening schools in July. That seems highly unlikely due to the county health department orders, funding, etc. But we'll see if something changes. Our food distribution continues. We have, and I think we have it later in the slide, we've now served almost 750,000 meals, which is incredible. We're making these final decisions about grading and graduation, like we've talked about tonight. And obviously, the state and federal budgets are going to be massively impacted by this, and we're bracing for that and getting the work done to prepare. So as we've talked about, and we've had a session on it, was the pass no mark, which we've talked about. So moving that way. Graduation, we are looking at 2 different plans, one the virtual graduation and another one where we might do something with students sort of in cars and being allowed to sort of get out and get their certificate with like an announcement of their name. So we're working with the police departments, county health, and everybody else to look at plans of what that might look like to do something at the school or at the school parking lot or parking area. And the whole team is working on that. And we hope to have something to the board actually by the end of the week with some thoughts about it. And then we would come back if we needed to talk more formally together. So, we're trying very hard to see if we can figure out something to do for our seniors. And we heard a lot of public comment about that earlier. So we continue to give support to our teachers, administrators, and parents. So we now have a class on Wednesdays, and something like 500 parents dipped into that this past Wednesday, which is pretty amazing. So continuing to address equity, you see a lot of the things that we're doing across the district. We can go to the next slide. So we're holding steady at about 16,500 logins every day. We're increasing the use of our apps through Clever, which is sort of like our one-stop shop where folks log in. And then we're also doing swaps twice weekly at the meal distribution site. So if somebody has a broken Chromebook, they can come to a meal distribution site and get that fixed. We're about 550 kids or families that we still know need internet connectivity. We got 300 more hotspots. Those are being distributed. 300 more come in the next 2 weeks. SCOWS and Clerical continue to reach out. And then we have broader partnerships with a lot of different folks. Sprint, the Housing Authority, we've been testing some super spots in the Richmond apartment complexes, sort of like mega hotspots. And again, no student being penalized for access issues. I think we talked about that this morning. So focusing on 2021, we are looking to have the students keep their devices over this summer while we think about how we would pay for anything that's lost or damaged. But we actually think this might be more efficient than trying to bring in 30,000 students or 20,000 students to drop off all their stuff in June or late June. So we're going to go with allowing students to keep their device over the summer. Obviously, seniors would need to turn them back in. And then we have a tech advisory. Our tech advisory committee is really starting to look at the TKK one-to-one device. And then we talked again just about making sure we have the most reliable internet ongoing if this is going to continue for the long term. So we've got about 5 weeks of school left, and then we'll really see where we are come August. So I mentioned we've totaled over 750,000 meals served to the community. We're still using First Student and community volunteers. And I just want to make a note that's not on here. We got this wonderful, generous donation from Chevron of 150 gas cards worth about $100 each. So I and the team will be heading out to our food sites to make sure the volunteers who've been out there get one of those and really say thank you to them. We're installing some more refrigeration boxes and really trying to make sure everybody is safe and doing their social distancing out there. We can keep going. No real update on CARE. The county is still working through what they want to do, and then we're still using all of our service providers to get the mental health and counseling to our students. We know that's a big need, so we'll continue working on it. So right now, I am meeting every week, as I said in my superintendent's report 6 hours ago, that I'm meeting with students every Thursday. So I've got one tomorrow. Then we do the twice weekly district communications. And then there's all the collaboration with the instructional team to continue to provide all the distance learning platforms. And then the Ed Fund is doing incredible work with their Rapid Relief Fund and just being as aggressive as possible in trying to find funding. Finally, we are slowly getting all of our essential staff back to work. And, by next week, pretty much everybody will have returned to work. We are increasing meal site staffing. So we continue to ramp that up and just work to ensure we're following all the safety precautions. Let's go to the next one. State budget. We're going to need more time to talk about this, but this is really probably the biggest emergency that we're going to be facing. We'll have the May revise soon, and we may find out that the COLA, which is our cost of living adjustment, may not be funded for next year. So that would be a 3% loss for us, which would be another $5 or $6 million we would have to find a way to absorb. We're just not going to know our true revenue budget because taxes aren't coming in now till after July. So we don't know what we're going to get cut or not. But we're certainly bracing for that. And here I might ask Dr. Wold just to talk about the fact that we are potentially facing cash flow issues. We are anticipating the state apportionment payment to schools will likely be delayed. So we are now starting to work with the county on what's known as a trans, where we are able to access funds from the coming year early and from the county treasury. And so we would temporarily borrow funds while the state delays payment. So that's a big issue that I don't want to just like drop on us here. We want to have some time to talk about that, but we also, I didn't know we'd be here at 11:50.
Yeah. And Superintendent Duffy, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And I think that we will definitely bring this again, at the next board meeting so that we can have this discussion earlier. And I just want to note, it is, 9 minutes till 12, and we still have the items that were pulled, C5, C9, C4, and C7. And I know that we are going to continue into closed session. So I just want to know if we can actually table for the next meeting F4.
I know
That's
we
my, yes, we can. It's
Okay.
4 second reading next time anyways. So you can review the materials. We'll be bringing back the fee schedule for a vote at the next meeting. We can do the presentation that night.
And then the,
Is that okay with board members? Is there, would somebody like to make a motion to table that item?
I move that we table it for.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Can we please have a vote?
Dawit, yes.
Laura, yes.
Panis, yes.
Cuevas, yes.
Phillips, yes.
Hernandez Jarvis, yes. So, facility use fees and monitoring for fiscal year 2020-2021, item F4 is tabled for the next meeting unanimously. Student trustee Rydell is absent from the vote. Thank you. Okay.
President Hernandez Jarvis, I just need to ask a very quick question.
Yes, trustee Phillips.
Mr. Duffy, the cash flow problems that we're having, are they related to COVID?
yes, because the state income is crashing, the state doesn't know if they will be able to apportion all of their cash in a timely fashion. And we need to talk further about it.
And so this, Trustee Panis brought this up at the last time we presented budget about monitoring cash. So we want to thank him for that. And we've been working with the county office. The expectation is we will not get paid our apportionment in June, which means while we'll have it budgeted for our books, we won't have it for cash flow purposes. We are planning to bring a TRAN, which is a short-term loan, to cover that because the state won't fund us. That will come on the meeting on the 20th. This has to do with the state not getting tax revenue when they pushed income taxes back to July.
So thank you, Dr. Wold, but I'm asking something very specific because we have money problems regardless of COVID. So I'm trying to find out, it's a very specific question, the cash flow problem that we're having now, is it solely because of COVID, or is it because of something else or a combination of something else?
This one is because of COVID in June. Future next year cash issues will be because of a combination of things, but this one in June will be because of COVID.
Okay, so who is it? I don't know if it's the county, I don't know if it's the state, but if we know that we're going to have problems next year, which we all know with money, how can we borrow against the money next year for expenses that we have now? I mean, I understand literally how we can do it, but how is that a wise thing to do? Why are we not going to the state and saying, you want us to provide relief for COVID, we need you to pay for it because now we're out of money, doing what you asked us to do? Why are we not doing that?
So we are doing that. This is exactly what happened to the state from 2008 to 2010. When they were having cash flow issues, they did what were called deferrals and they pushed the payments out. From an accounting point, we have to book it as revenue in the current year, even though we don't actually receive the cash. So I'll present an entire explanation, but on the 20th to the board on how this works out. We are working with the state. The state doesn't have the money. They did not get the cash in their accounts because nobody paid taxes. Only 40% of what they expected to receive came in April because of the deadline pushing to July 15th.
So, and I see Trustee Cuevas has a question, so I'm gonna stop, but just really quickly, why, if there is an IOU, if that's where we're going now, why are these IOUs ours and not the state's? I'm done, that's my last question.
I just have a piggyback question to that, which is, Mr. Wald, are you planning to present something around this and then ask us to take action on the 20th?
Yes, we are. We will need to take action to get it done.
I suggest that you not do that in just one shot. I suggest that you actually rev up this conversation, because I am not going to be voting for anything that you present in one night related to this, because it's much more complicated with where the money is in relation to COVID, where the stimulus relief is in relation to how much districts will get. I'd like to actually see that in advance.
We will send it to you early next week
with the board before we actually move to act on anything. I think the public needs to hear that as well.
We'll send you something early next week, a week before, but we will need to act to be able to have cash in time for June's payroll.
Then I would suggest that there be a special meeting for you to do the rev up before the 20th.
I
We can
agree
do
with
that.
Trustee Cuevas.
Thank you, Trustee Cuevas, for that suggestion. Thank you, Trustee Phillips, for your questions as well. And I do agree with that we need to actually take a closer look at this because it's a lot bigger, than just to have a conversation on the same day that we're going to vote on something recommended for the board. So I look forward to working with Clerk Lara and Superintendent Duffy to work on a special meeting for this specific topic. Okay, so board, now I would like to wrap up our conversation with this. We have the following items that were pulled that are left. Item C5 pulled by Trustee Panas, Mr. Duffy pulled C9, and Trustee Phillips C4 and C7. These are the last items before comments from the board and moving on to closed session. And I think that if it's okay, to go into closed session before comments from the board, that would be good with me.
So
Okay.
we have, which one? We have C5. Who pulled that?
Trustee Panas.
Okay, so this is the Microsoft license vendor. So as suggested by the staff, I went back to the 6/26/2019 agenda and researched this item. And the financial impact statement there does not indicate whether the spending was budgeted and what the budget account number is. So I move we table this item till we get a proper financial impact statement as required by the board. Policy 9322.
Is there a second to Trustee Panas' motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, board, let's take a vote, please.
Dawit, yes.
Cuevas,
Yeah.
yes.
Panas, yes.
Laura, yes.
Trustee Phillips?
Phillips, yes.
Hernandez Jarvis, yes. Motion passes unanimously with student trustee Rydell absent. Thank you. Mr. Duffy, you had pulled item C9.
That we're not going to take tonight. We'll bring it back.
Okay. Trustee Phillips, you had pulled items C4 and C7.
You're muted, Trustee Phillips.
Keep forgetting to take myself off mute. I pulled it just because it's a board policy, and I don't think you should pass board policies on consent. We talked about this already. If you could just take 2 seconds and say what it is, I'll move the item.
This is just the second reading for the maintaining appropriate adult-student interaction. It gives specific examples and is a much better policy than just being appropriate. So this is, again, the second reading, and we're looking for recommending approval.
Thank you. I move the item.
I'll second that.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
C4 moved by Trustee Phillips, seconded by Trustee Panas. Can we please take a vote?
Laura,
Cuevas, yes.
Laura, yes.
Panas, yes.
Dawit, yes.
Phillips, yes.
Hernandez Jarvis, yes. C4 passes unanimously by a vote of, passes unanimously with student trustee Rydell absent. Sorry about that. And the last item that we have that was pulled is item C7.
So quick question. Korematsu is basically a new school. Why are we tearing the roof down?
We're not tearing the roof. I'm sorry. So what we're bringing to you tonight is a water contract to install fall protection on the roof. So with the green roofs that are on the Korematsu facility, in order to provide proper maintenance to that roof, fall protection is required, which was never designed in the original project. So the portion of the roof that gets removed is only to install the fall protection. So it's very minor, but it is something we need for our staff and to meet OSHA requirements.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question, Madam Chair?
Trustee Cuevas?
Mr. Freeze, did you say minor? But I'm looking at what the cost is. What's the cost again on these bids?
So the cost is
What's the high and what's the
$250,000.
low?
The low is $255 and the high is $463.
Okay, so $500,000 doesn't feel minor to me.
Well, minor, I meant minor in regards to the roof repair, tearing the roof off. What we have to do is cut into the roof in order to install the metal uprights that will hold the cables that will provide security protection for employees that go under the roof.
And is
Val, I can't hear you.
Trustee Corpus, I can't hear you either. I can't hear you. Trustee Cuevas, you completely, your audio disconnected.
Madam Chair, I'd like to table this item. I move to table this item.
Second that.
There's a second, okay. Trustee Phillips, seconded. Can we please have a vote?
Laura,
Dowd,
yes.
Why are we
Dowd, yes.
tabling it?
Panis, yes.
Cuevas, yes.
Hernandez Travis, yes.
Phillips, yes.
So, motion to table item C7, award of contract for Korematsu Middle School fall protection at buildings C and D upper roofs has been tabled unanimously with student trustee Rydell absent. Okay, thank you, board. That concludes the items that were pulled from our consent agenda. And the last items that we have left are comments from the Board of Education, but we have a continuation of closed session. So board, would it be appropriate to save your comments until after, or do you want to just do them right now?
No.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. And we are at 12:03. And we have one closed session, which I'm hoping will not take very long. So if anybody would like to make a motion to extend the meeting by 15 minutes.
I'll move we extend the meeting to 12:20.
I second that motion. Can we please take a vote?
Dowd, yes.
Panis, yes.
Phillips, yes.
Laura, yes.
Yes.
Hernandez Travis, yes. Motion passes unanimously to extend the meeting to 12:20. Thank you, board. With student trustee Rydell absent. Okay, so we're going to recess into continuation of our closed session now.
President Hernandez, can I make one quick comment?
Yes, Mr. Duffy.
If there's any members of the audience watching or staying online who are expecting any specific report outs about any specific individual employees, we are not going to be doing that this evening. So I just want to be clear, if anybody's specifically waiting in case the closed session runs long, we will come out with a general statement, but we are going to just get direction from our board and come back and do ratifications in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you to members of the public too who are still with us right now.
All right, so we're going to the Google Hangout.
Hi, everyone. We just finished our continuation of closed session. Thank you for everybody who is still here with us. And student trustee Dawood Vasquez Somala, thank you so much as well for being here with us. Mr. Duffy, are you
Yes, I'm here.
connected yet? Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Do we have a report out?
We
for
do.
session?
So tonight in closed session, the board took action to direct staff regarding appointments for specific management positions. Those positions will be listed for ratification on the May 20th board meeting. And the board also directed superintendent to hold a special meeting regarding both cash and further positions.
Thank you, Superintendent Duffy. Thank you, board. Our next scheduled Board of Education meeting will be via Zoom on May 20th, 2020. It is 12:38 a.m. right now, and unless any board members have any final brief comments they would like to make. Okay,
Could I make
thank
some?
you. Student trustee Dawood?
Dawood, you need to go to bed, dude.
Yeah, I know, but I got a job to represent, so that's what I'm doing. But I had some questions real quickly. Okay, so one of my teachers thinks that like we can't see each other's faces, and my other ones are like, nah, you can see people's faces. Which one is it? Is there some rule saying that like we can't see other people's faces being recorded?
Like during the Zoom meetings or during
Yeah.
Google Meet?
During Zoom meetings for class, yeah.
That's a great question. So you can see people's faces, but every student has the ability to opt out. So if they don't want to be recorded in any way, they do have that. It's the same with like filling out the media release form. So we've been talking about this internally.
Couldn't they just choose to turn off their camera while everybody else has it on?
And that's the suggestion we've actually found the couple of hundred families who filled out the forms that didn't want any release, and we've contacted them to tell them, if you don't want anything on here, you can turn it off. We're also trying to figure out the right way to message that to other folks. I don't know. It's a whole other conversation, and we're really not allowed to talk about it in this meeting.
That's fine.
Yeah,
that's
thank
that's
you.
enough for me.
But you can, if you want to email me or call or text me tomorrow, we can talk about it.
Okay, that's
Thank
good.
you. Thank you, Mr. Duffy, and thank you, student trustee Dawood. Thank you. Have a good evening. Trustee Phillips, trustee Panas, very quickly, if there's anything you want to share. I'm sorry that, we're having to cut our comments super short, but it is very late.
I do have a couple things I'd like to share. I'm sorry, not going to be too long, but I just like to say that FCMAT last week put out some excellent guidance titled Preparing Budget Scenarios for 2020, 2021. I don't know if all the trustees have seen it, but I highly recommend that everyone read it. To me, the most important part was the following guidance. FCMAT recommends developing a minimum of 3 alternative scenarios from an LEA's baseline projection. So they're saying we should have 3 different scenarios when we look at our budget. And we've already heard Dr. Wold talk about how we'll probably have a 0 or maybe a negative COLA. Or the state won't fund the COLA. My other point is I'm deeply troubled by the statement in the Friday memo that we're planning to sweep remaining site funds. Due to school closures, a significant amount of money has gone unspent. These funds were allocated to schools in order to serve our most disenfranchised students. Funds earmarked to pay for a field trip, tickets, buses, books, teacher PD, and materials for learning and more. So President Hernandez-Jarvis, I'm asking that we put an item on the May 20 agenda for the board to discuss these funds with the ability to take action on it. That's the end of my
Trustee
comments.
Panas.
Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Panas. Request noted. Trustee Phillips?
I will save my comments for another time.
Thank you, trustee Phillips. So will I. I'll share my comments at a future meeting. Thank you, everybody, for staying with us, and thank you to the community who's still participating and to staff. Thank you so much. And our meeting is adjourned at 12:41. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.